Won't you come and meet me at the movies? Won't you come and watch a flick with me? Famous scenes with drama queens and heroes acted out there on the silver screen. Come grab a seat, the popcorn is on me.
Hello, welcome to Meet Me at the Movies. I'm Noel Thomas II, hanging out with Thomas Manning, and we're chatting about films that we feel fit into categories of Best of 2022. And Thomas, our categories are probably a little different than many people's categories. Would that be correct? Or maybe mine, yours might be actually exactly like you would want them to be, and actually exactly like everybody else would expect them to be.
I'm playing it pretty simple. Just like I want to make sure I highlight some of my films that were some of my favorites that maybe we didn't get a chance to talk to at other points this year. So those are some of the ones, like After Yang is one I'm going to get to. But I think for you, you actually are definitely taking a different route. You have some categories that I don't think anybody else, any other film critic across the entire country, across the entire world has. So, yeah, you're going to be handing out some special accolades today.
Yeah, so you're right. I will definitely be handing out some special accolades. We will see where we go with that. We won't get to all of them. I think you and I both did kind of a 22 for 22. But as award season is continuing for the next month or so, we thought this would be a great time for us to spotlight some of our favorites and most memorable of the year. I'll let you go ahead and dive in first, Thomas, and then I'll tag in behind you.
Yeah, so I'll talk about After Yang, which I mentioned briefly. And this is an A24 film starring Colin Farrell, and it's written, directed, and edited by a filmmaker who goes by Kogonada. And it's based on a short story, but this filmmaker, Kogonada, he specializes in video essays, and he does a lot of work for the Criterion Collection. So as a filmmaker like that, who has such a precise and analytical and critical perspective on just the art form in general, he brings a really unique approach to this feature film, and he's able to hone in on certain details, and he understands the power of subtlety. And he just has this really acute awareness of, sensitivity in individual moments, and that was really perfect for approaching the tone of this film. That's very, very moody, very melancholy, but it's also hopeful and optimistic ultimately. And there's a certain film that you and I share an appreciation for, and that's The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. The Ben Stiller film, and watching this, I was struck that as you could watch these two as a companion piece.
Wow.
So the central thesis for Secret Life of Walter Mitty is beautiful moments don't ask for attention. That's a quote from Sean Penn's character. And After Yang, it kind of builds on that thematically in a really fascinating way. And so I don't know if you've gotten around to watching it yet, but I would highly recommend it so you can kind of see what I'm talking about there.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, because that is one that I did not get a chance to check out during 2022. But I've heard you talk about it, and hearing you talk about it in this context, especially as it relates to a possible nice double feature with Walter Mitty, I think I'm going to dive into it. I think I'm going to actually dive into both of them as a double feature. So thanks for that recommendation. An A24 film, and you and I, we really do enjoy A24 films. And the next one I'm going to talk about, first one I'm going to talk about, I want to make sure I get to this. This is honestly my favorite of the year across the board, and so my award for this was for the best dang stinking awesome flick of the year to feature Hot Dog Fingers. There you go. Let me say it again.
Oh yeah.
The best dang stinking awesome flick of the year to feature Hot Dog Fingers. Not many of them have, but the movie is Everything Everywhere All at Once. I got it all right. Normally I get that title mixed up with about a million others, but the film was released back in March, and it has stayed with me all season long, all year long actually, Thomas. And it's a film that's getting a lot of really amazing awards buzz, and I think it surprised a lot of people how this film has resonated and continued to speak to people well beyond something that was released in March. Michelle Yeoh in this, Jamie Lee Curtis, James Hong, and quite a few others. It's an amazing ensemble film that we saw the Doctor Strange multiverse of madness film, but this one was a much better multiverse type film for me personally, and I loved so many different aspects of it. It received multiple nominations for the North Carolina Film Critics Association. I think 17 nominations, and ultimately ended up winning 9 awards, which was a record for the North Carolina Film Critics, and one that's well worth checking out. It's a different kind of film, but it's a film that does speak to your heart and speaks to your mind as well, and even from a spiritual standpoint, it can help you think about some things from faith. Really, really love this movie, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Yeah, did you mention Ke Kwan there as well, who he's really cleaning up in the Best Supporting Actor categories across the awards. And, of course, we remember him as Short Round from Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom. And here he is back in the forefront, and I just couldn't be happier for him.
It's such a wonderful film, and if you haven't had a chance to see it, it is going to continue to be talked about over the next little bit as award season continues. All right, Thomas, what else is on your list for films to remember, or film moments to remember from 2022?
Yeah, so I want to talk about the film Decision to Leave from the Korean director Park Chan-wook. And if you have a dark and twisted sense of humor like me, you could technically consider this a rom-com. It's not your traditional, Julia Roberts, Richard Gere rom-com, but it's on the surface, it's a police procedural, but it's ultimately a love story about two people who have some very serious toxic traits, and then they got some major work-life balance issues. And then there's this mysterious gravity that keeps bringing them back together. And it's almost like they complete each other, but at the same time, their presence in each other's lives also causes even more problems and even more volatility. So it's a really terrible cycle for them. But for us, for the viewer, it's fantastic entertainment. And I don't know if you've gotten a chance to check this out, but it's a beautiful film from a technical perspective, cinematography, the editing. There's some really incredible close-ups just capturing the wave of emotions that these characters are going through, and it's a beautiful score as well. But I'd highly recommend for anybody out there who hasn't seen Decision to Leave or hasn't checked out certain aspects of it, or maybe hasn't downloaded the score on Spotify, do that, listen to it, watch it, and it is it's going to, if you have a dark and twisted sense of humor like me, this just might be your favorite rom-com of 2022.
It is a foreign language film, international language film as well, correct?
That is correct. Yes, it is from South Korea.
I will have to say that's yet another one that I haven't seen. It's one of these award season. We talk about this every year. It's triage, and you can't get to everything. But that is one. Again, you've been saying, Dad, you got to watch it. You got to watch it. You got to watch it. And so I will. I will. I just haven't been able to yet. But there is an international film, Thomas, and this is on my list as the most original international film of the year that includes a song and dance number. The movie is Triple R, and the song and dance number seemed to kind of come out of nowhere. This is an Indian language film, and it is a pure experience to engage in this film. And I remember hearing about it and hearing about how much money it was making and what it was doing overseas, and it's one of these films you got to see. So as soon as I had a chance to check it out, I said, I've got to see what this is all about. Honestly, from the open, I never kind of looked back as I started watching this. It's a story that has so many different layers to it. It's a pretty long film as well, and it's a beautifully shot. 182 minutes is the runtime of this. It's beautifully shot. The costume design the technical aspects of this, everything you would think of, even the CG, everything is incredibly spectacular. The casting is solid. It's a film that looks at war. It looks at loyalty. It looks at friendships, and it asks questions about when do you know what is right compared to when should you be right and when should you be loyal. And so I loved this film. Triple R is the name of this. And if you haven't seen it, where can people find this movie, Thomas?
It's actually available right now on Netflix. And it's dubbed in English, but you can also watch it in Hindi as well. And some places you can watch in the original language, which is Telugu, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, it's a phenomenal film, and I know that you appreciated this as well. And this is one of those I had to kind of talk you into catching up on, right?
Yeah. So actually, I heard about it way back in March when it first came out, but I didn't get a chance to. Because it's a 3-hour commitment. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I finally got around to it in November, and I think you watched it sometime this summer, maybe. And as soon as I watched it, I was like, okay, this is the film or one of the main films that's going to be championing this award season. And North Carolina film critics definitely gave it some love, and I'm very pleased with that.
Yeah, and it's a film, interestingly enough, it's not being pushed from India as an international film like for the Academy. And I'm like, why would you not do that? They're really hoping that people will recognize it as best film period, which North Carolina film critics and other film critic organizations have done that from a nomination standpoint, is showing up in multiple categories, as I believe it should. It's worthy of that. This is one of the best of the year for sure. Well, you are watching Meet Me at the Movies. I'm Noel T. Manning II with Thomas Manning, and we are talking about some of our memories from 2022. We're going to take a quick intermission. We'll be back and see what Thomas has in store for his next best film memory from 2022. Because if we ask him just memories altogether, Taylor Swift's going to show up in there somewhere. So hang around. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Education is our most powerful tool to improve and change our world. Hi, I'm Rhonda Benfield, your host for School Matters. Join me for a new program every other week with information from and about the students and staff of Cleveland County Schools. Discover what our schools are doing to challenge students and help them reach their full potential. You can catch us on Spectrum Cable Channel 19 or stream us live on C19.TV.
Hello, welcome to Meet Me at the Movies, or welcome back to Meet Me at the Movies if you joined us for the first half of the show. Noel T. Manning II with Thomas Manning. We're talking about some of our favorite movie memories of 2022. To look back as we're thinking about award season, these show up on our list for Meet Me at the Movies. So, Thomas, I wrapped up the first half of the show, so come on back with me and tell me something else that shows up on your 2022 list.
Yes, I'm just going to take in a completely normal voice here. I think two of us speaking in different voices would just be too much for everything to handle. So, but I'm going to be talking about the film God's Country and the directorial debut from Julian Higgins, starring Tandy Way Newton. And I got to interview Julian Higgins about this film a few months ago. There was a really fantastic conversation. But he actually directed a short film in 2015 that was adapted from the same short story by James Lee Burke. But he came back to this narrative and recontextualized it into a feature film. And from the opening 8 minutes of this film, the first 8 minutes, there's no word of dialogue. It's just pure visual storytelling. It's just the atmospheric score, the ambient sound design. And so all of that gives you so much what you need to know about this central character, Tandy Way Newton's protagonist, and also just the circumstances that are going to lead into the central conflict. And this film was shot in Montana, and I have not been to Montana myself, but this has inspired me to put that on my travel destinations. It's somewhere that looks very cold, very beautiful. And I think in a sense, the Coen Brothers film Fargo, the way that made the snow and the weather almost a character in the story, I think you can make a comparison here with the way just these harsh winter conditions are a character in this story in God's Country. The cinematography, like I mentioned, it's shot by Andrew Wheeler, who was also the cinematographer on Julian Higgins' short film back in 2015. So just, across the board, this is a group of people who are, familiar with each other, working on this project, who are pretty much at the top of their game. And I'm glad I'm getting to talk about this now, because one I've been wanting to talk about for a while. Newton's performance, it's very understated, but you can see that this character is carrying around just these very heavy burdens of grief and loneliness. And there's this deep sorrow and this anguish that she's just kind of carrying on her shoulders. And for anybody out there who hasn't seen God's Country, it's a heavy one, but it's definitely worth your time. And I'm glad I got a chance to talk about it a little bit here.
Well, you got a chance to see this how far back? I mean, what was the timing of this?
It was actually sometime in August.
Okay.
Maybe late August I saw it.
Yeah, I was thinking it was in the summer time period that you got a chance to check this out. It's interesting that the films we're talking about today, for the most part, so far, are not necessarily ones that were released right here during award season, which is what distributors try to do. Studios try to put these things fresh in your mind. But you and I like to go back, and actually I am going to talk about another one on my list, unless there's anything else you want to make sure you add, Thomas.
No, I think I pretty much covered it.
Okay.
Well, Julian Higgins is from New Hampshire, and it was pretty cool. I actually got to go on a trip to New Hampshire a few months ago, and I found out that I just missed him. He had been at the New Hampshire Film Festival, and I ended up going to the New Hampshire Film Festival like a day later, a day after he'd been there. So just missed him, but he won an award for like best New Hampshire filmmaker. So
Yeah.
that was pretty cool.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, for me, I'm going to a film that did not get a theatrical release, but it should have. This film was released back in July, initially at the San Diego Comic-Con, and then in the U.S. through Hulu and a few other outlets as well, international through Disney Plus and Stars Plus in Latin America. It's a prequel, but for me, this gets the best and most original coming-of-age story. The movie is Prey. It is a prequel to the Predator franchise, and it is truly amazing to me, Thomas, to watch this film. This film would have been, it did have dialogue, and you could watch it in multiple versions of dialogue as well. We've talked about this with some other films, but I did watch this in the English version, and it's a story of when the Predators basically, if you're familiar with the Predator franchise, they're hunters. They come to try to look for the greatest game that they can hunt that gives them the greatest thrill and the biggest challenge. And so this takes place in the Great Plains in early 1700s, 1719, I think, is the time period for this. And we've got a young talent who is truly amazing. She was nominated for Breakthrough. Amber Midthunder, I think I've got that name right, Thomas. She was nominated for Best Newcomer Award for the North Carolina Film Critics Association. The movie is called Prey, and it's amazing to see this concept of this film with these technologically advanced beings coming into this primitive world. And I was blown away by talking about the landscapes. In God's country. Landscapes here were beautiful as well. The special effects, of course, you would expect that to be done well, but it wasn't overkill in this film. And we got to see so many things from the perspectives of the natives and the indigenous people, and I loved that. I really, really loved that. And there's a young girl who wants to be acknowledged for being a great hunter, and that is typically not the case in this particular society. You don't typically see women having that opportunity, but she wants to prove herself, and she does, and she was amazing in this. As this film was, it's a film that I would go back and watch this multiple times. There were other Predators films, not so much so, but this one I think is one of the best.
Yeah, there were a lot of great action movies in 2022. Of course, you've got the high octane films like Top Gun Maverick and Triple R, but you also have these more small scale action films that are just as impressive in their own right. And I think Prey definitely fits in that category. And I think Prey is a top 3, top 5 action movie of 2022 and one of my favorite movies, period, of the year.
Absolutely. I think we've got time for a couple more just between us. So if you would, Thomas, give us one more you want to make sure you get covered.
So I'll briefly touch on a film that, well, if you can see my sweatshirt here, you might see who I'm going to talk about. That is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, starring Nicolas Cage. And this film is really a vehicle to celebrate his entire career. And he's playing himself. He's down and out. He's buried in debt, but he has to take an unconventional gig to kind of pay off some debts. And he goes off to an island off the coast of Spain to meet with a super fan played by Pedro Pascal. But then, of course, you find out there's a little something else under the surface there going on. And you have Nicolas Cage gets caught up in a conflict between the CIA and this kind of a criminal empire off the coast of Spain. It's just a ride. It's just a great fun time. Pedro Pascal, it might be my favorite performance that I've seen from Pedro Pascal, and it's a really great story about friendship, and it's a really great bromance movie, I would say. And it's one that I've come back to. I think I've saw it 4 times in 22, and it's one I'm going to revisit many times for many years to come. So Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, it was one of my most anticipated for a long time, and it did not disappoint.
And you've the past 2 years we really loved talking about Nick Cage, Pig, and his performance in that the year prior, and now Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I continue to love that Cage says to us, "I'm a movie star. I'm an actor. Not everything I have to do has to be about the Oscars and award season. And if I get acknowledged, cool, but I don't have to." At the beginning, in the next month or so, we're going to be seeing Nicolas Cage in a Western as well. So he just continues to act and says, "Give me a paycheck. I'll show up. It's a job. It's a job." And I love that. I absolutely love that about him. It doesn't have to be about art. It can also be about entertainment and what entertains him. And so that's one of the things I love about Nicolas Cage. And in that film in particular, you definitely see him having some fun, making fun of himself as well. All right. Well, I'm going to give you one on my list, Thomas. This movie received the honor for the best use of L.A. in the title and also in the atmospheric backdrop since La La Land. Once again, the best use of L.A. in the title and use of L.A. as the atmospheric backdrop since La La Land. The movie is Ambulance. Talk about action, Thomas. This movie is high octane. It is a Michael Bay film, and there are even some internal making fun of Michael Bay films as well within this. He produced it and starred. It's based on a French film, Thomas, or either a French source material. If I'm correct, and if I'm not, please let me know. But I got some great talent in this. James Gyllenhaal. Who else is in this one?
Did you say James Gyllenhaal?
Jake Gyllenhaal. I did say James. I was looking at James Vanderbilt, who was one of the producers, but Jake Gyllenhaal. Who else is in this, Thomas?
Also, Yahya Abdul-Mateen, who we know from, he's been a ton of great stuff over the years, from Aquaman to The Watchmen on HBO. He was in Candyman, and one of our brightest, up and coming actors, and he's just incredible in this, as he always is.
It's a wonderful film, and I just got a text, and it was based on a Danish film of the same name, not a French film. I just got that. I appreciate that from one of our loyal viewers and listeners. But this is a film that, Thomas, if you want high octane action, you get this across the board, almost the entire runtime in this, and 136 minutes. So it's another long film, but it doesn't feel long. You and I watched a film, that was only about an hour and a half. Movie called Clean, which I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about. But the premise of that looked like it was going to be kind of this action-packed film, and it felt like it was 12 hours long. This movie did not. It was just fast-paced, and like many Michael Bay films. And this one really did work for me, and I loved the use of L.A. And how that played a role within the film. Love this film. It's one I'll go back to. Your mom also really appreciated this as well. Just high octane action. I don't have to get into a lot of the storyline, but it's a big part of the film takes place within a hostage situation in the back of an ambulance while a road chase is going on. I don't have to get into the heist aspects of it. If you like Heat, I think you might appreciate this movie as well. What else do you want to make sure you mention, Thomas? Because I know you really liked Ambulance.
So you mentioned the first 20 minutes are basically like a slice from Heat, Michael Mann's Heat, and then from there it's just a 2-hour car chase. And I want to mention Isa Gonzalez, of course, who I think you might recognize from Baby Driver, from Godzilla vs. Kong. And she, along with Yahya Abdul-Mateen's character, both of them are the emotional cores of this film. They have a very unique relationship, a unique dependency on each other in the film, and that makes for a really interesting lens, through which to view this wild, crazy action going on. I watched this back when it was in theaters in April, but I'm really glad we got the whole family together. It was like New Year's Eve to watch it, and nothing brings families together like Michael Bay.
Thomas, I'd love for you to give us a movie quote of the week, and there was one you pulled out from the Walter Mitty. I'd love for you to share that as our final movie quote of the week, if you would.
Yeah. So beautiful moments don't ask for attention.
Well, thank you all for joining us, spending time with us right here on Meet Me at the Movies. And until next time, for Thomas Manning and for the entire cast and crew, we do wish you all a Happy New Year. And we're looking forward to what's ahead for films in 2023. Until next time, that's a wrap.
Happy